Hello everybody. I think I've got everything set up. If any of you are getting ready to come to Reapercon, you're probably starting to get a little like how I feel right now, which is So I was doing something and like totally lost track of time because I was looking for something I wanted to use on the show. I see Quindy, Beguiler87, Trashorama debating with themselves whether to eat some potato chips found in the closet. I don't know why you wouldn't eat potato chips. They're pretty awesome, unless you're saying they could be like 12 years old, and then maybe I wouldn't eat those potato chips. So there's several things I want to do today. One is do some, hi green users, Bob and Julie, do some quick tests of the consistency of the Reaper Superwashes. When I was reviewing last week's video, I noticed that Inara had asked about that in chat, and I had completely spaced on seeing that question. Plus, it was the #1 question on the video I put up on YouTube. So I want to make a follow-up video that's more thorough, but I figured I could at least do some quick tests so that if you are someone considering whether or not to order that box when it becomes available, you will have more information. In case anyone's wondering about the box that will become available, my understanding from Reaper Live last week, which because everyone at Reaper is also was a little, it was a fun show. You should watch it. The boxes are likely going to go on sale on the website Tuesday after Labor Day. This is my understanding. So if you're coming to Reapercon, you can buy them at the show. They are going to try to have, I can't remember if they use UPS or FedEx, but they try to have a thing where you can send stuff home if you don't have space in your luggage because you're flying. My understanding is that they're attempting to try to do that. So again, not a Reaper employee, don't really know anything. But that is the information that I have so far. There will be 2 boxes. One is this box that I opened up for you last week, and I will just very quickly run through what's in here. This is called Swag Box, so there's the gift certificate. There's the CUP rinsing cup and or drinking vessel, as you wish. A miniature holder from Game Envy, the hobby holder. I did not bring my open one over this time, but this thing turns into a handle so that you can brace your hand and paint detail more easily. This will also be a fun show because I'm on some medication that's making my hands a little shaky, so yay. These are the paint colors, which I will switch to the other view and show you more closely because I think they were like kind of dry when we looked at them last week, but I don't think they were completely dry. So those, I'll just put this aside for when we switch to the other view, and then we'll look at miniatures at the other view. You get a Reaper notebook, a little bit smaller than years previous, which some of us are excited about. You still get the little envelope where you can put your class tickets and whatnots. There are 3 stickers that everyone kindly in chat help me remember are from the Kickstarter expansion boxes. So you get different symbols. It's easy art. It's cool. There's nothing to complain about there. And then some miniatures. Which let's switch view and take a look at some miniatures. So this is Daryl Brumby, human fighter, with a torch. If you're taking my OSL class or one of the other people's OSL classes, you'll have a nice practice miniature right in your box. This is the Reapercon Sophie that I now realize I forgot to bring the painted version over. I will do that in just a minute. Oh, we looked at very grumpy. Who am I missing? The mouseling. The very adorable. Also good practice for OSL if you want to try practicing cartoony OSL. Here's your victim. So that's what's in the box called Swag Box. I do not have, oh, I forgot the paints. So you get this triad of paints, which is Rot Stump Mud, West Barrow Slate, and Barrowgate Copper, which is a metallic, as we can confirm when we do the waving it around test, and you can see how pretty it is. That's a neat color, actually. These are both very useful colors that I am happy to see. But you know me, so the post that I promised a couple of weeks ago, if you are still packing for Reapercon or Nova Open or some other show, let me just check my orientation of my camera here a little bit. A couple of weeks ago did a show on hobby supplies to bring or to think about not bringing if you're someone who overpacks to a convention, depending on, or any painting outside your house opportunity. Could be, you're going to the game store to paint, you're going to a friend's house. But the one thing I didn't discuss in that one was paint. And I've had a lot of questions over the years, as have most people who've been painting more than 5 minutes. I bet a lot of you have had this question. If I could only have, 15 paints, 18 paints, whatever number, people will come up with different numbers, which ones should they be? So I finally posted that article. So if you've been waiting for that, that is on my blog that Darth Abacus just posted the link to, and it's over there. And you just go to the blog section, it'll be the first thing up. What's kind of funny about this is, so I try to promote my blog on Facebook and Instagram. I think that's about it. I don't think I'm very social media savvy. So maybe I should get something to show you in the meantime. We can look at some of these figures that I've been using the Superwashes on in the meantime. And I tried to make like a little graphic to make it clear what it is, so I can include a picture. And I think I came up with the title, "The Only 15 to 25 Paints You Need." And a lot of people, I guess, felt kind of attacked. They're like, I like having lots of paint. And it's like, okay, have you seen my shelf? Because I like having lots of paint too, and I'm not excited when they come out with new paints at events like this. So I'm not telling anyone to only have a certain number of paints. This is just about if you are someone who wants to practice color mixing more, that is a really good way to do it. Reduce your set down. And if you're traveling, you cannot bring 700 paints. So how do you pick which ones to not do? We did a show on this as well, but there were some things I didn't quite get time to cover in the show, and it's different when you write stuff out, and I have pictures of the paint options and stuff. So, and there's a link to the show if you do prefer the video content. So you can go to the blog and just go straight to the show if you would prefer that. Let's see, Trash-A-Rama. How do you deal with labels when the heat print labels have faded? My painting light appears to have faded my paint labels. It seems very random which one of those things are going to fade. I'm not sure if the newest labels are free of that problem. How I handle it is a very primitive method. And I just, before it gets totally bad, I try to, I get out my magnifier and bright lights and figure out the information and write it on the bottom. So this one hasn't quite gone that far, but I probably should think about it sooner or later. Also this one. What's funny about this is you would think that the paints I use more, the labels would wear out faster, but these are actually paints I don't use a lot. So who knows? Who knows why? Maybe metallic. There's something about the metallics that oozes through the labels. I don't know. So let me just switch views for a minute, and I will go get the Sophie. Very carefully. This is what the Sophie looks like when you put her wings on. I extended the base a little, so I tried to duplicate the same texture that Bobby Jackson used in the sculpting. But if you saw it in the blister, the base is like the typical Dungeon Dwellers size base. I don't think I have Dungeon Dwellers with me. Wait, do I have the mini of the month? I should have the mini of the month. Who's not on the same base as usual. Because Jason did, I like these kinds of stones that Jason did better. Bobby does these little tiny ones, which makes it take longer to sculpt, and I prefer painting this kind, but I'm saving that rant up for Bobby Jackson when I see him at the show. So this is how I painted the Sophie, and it took longer than I had hoped because I was kind of like, well, I want to see if I can improve my non-metallic metal a little, work with reflected light a little more and stuff, and non-metallic metal just takes forever. This is actually, I believe, a 3D print, but it should be very similar to the Bones USA one. And the wing slotted in really well. Like if you're a regular viewer, you know that I have glue curses. And I was kind of dreading the whole, well, I'm going to have to paint everything and then stick these wings on. And that's going to be a disaster. And it was not. It went fine. I didn't even have to fill anything. I thought I would have to fill, but I didn't. And, I mean, I am leery of, I like to, if I can, bubble wrap miniatures. And there was a show on that, and that was kind of last year's pre-Reapercon focus, but there is an article on that on the blog. It's how to safely transport miniatures. You should be able to find that off the front page. But yeah, so that's the Sophie. Pendrake is multitasking and watching the video from Anne earlier today on another device. So that's Sophie. I'm going to put her down. The roots actually are roots. We have a lot of trees that make a lot of saplings in our yard. So I just pulled up some saplings and dried out the roots. Do I still need this? Yeah, I'll keep this for a minute. All right, so the other thing I want to try to do today, I'll do the superwash tests and then do this and then maybe do some more superwash painting. But you guys have seen a lot of superwash, so I don't know if I want to make it all superwash all the time. So my class is on OSO, and it's this figure, not this figure obviously, but there's no OSL on these, but there's always light on things. So these are standard from above lighting, and they're also an example, an opportunity to talk about if you got feedback on your miniature or what kind of things would people talk about. And I thought I could spruce them up a little. We may or may not get here. I don't know. But I thought it would be fun if I could talk to you guys about that, but then also have a slightly different example for them. But we'll see if that happens. There were things I liked about each one of these. So this was, I was doing test paints for the Krampus Learn to Paint kit that came out a couple years ago. And I think they sold some last year too. So I knew the colors I had. I was just testing how I wanted to use them. So I liked this guy, but in the end I decided Krampus needed to have more of a, dark and creepy fur look. And then there was I think I did the wood more like that one too. There were wood parts and skin parts, and Krampus had a little barrel. But all right, super washes. If you haven't been here recently, Reaper is releasing these. They're in the Barrowgate box as a soft release, but this is a new kind of paint. So these aren't just new colors, they have slightly different properties. There are 12 of them in the starting box, and these are the colors. So I did these color swatches on a previous occasion. So the goal with these is that they're going to bring out the texture, but they're also going to tint the tops of. So the raised, they're going to work on both the raised and the reset areas of texture, so that you can kind of do some quick painting if you want. And that's the other 6 colors that they're starting with. But then last week we tested what happens when you dilute them. So this is out of the bottle, and then these are diluted with successively more washes. So that's 1 drop of the superwash to 1 drop water, 1 drop superwash to 2 drops water, and then 1 drop superwash to 4 drops water. And you can see that it has now lost that property. It's just tinting everything very evenly, not having darker things collect in the recesses. Then this was testing it with, where is it? So brush on sealer is Reaper's equivalent of matte medium. And thus also you can use matte medium as a sealer if you need to, because a lot of sealers and clear coats are just clear paint. They're not magic weapons. So this is the same ratio, so 1:1, 1:2, 1:4. And if you use that medium, it maintains the properties. So that gives you a little flexibility of whether you want it to be giving a more even coating or whether you want it to be gathering in the recesses. This one is Reaper's other product that is more obviously named, is wash medium. So that's some medium, and I think it's got a little more water in it than the other mix. And it also maintains the properties. Although I would say it kind of does split the difference. But this was 1:4. So this mix, this dilution was equivalent to these two. And I would say that it's more similar to this, but it falls off the raised texture a little more. And this is the same thing, but in green, and I'll let you look at that while I review questions here. You could make that hunk of flint a magic glowing hunk of flint and do OSL. It's actually, I made these magic crystals on the class mini, which I would show you, but I packed them up already. So I packed up my class example and my like cooking show stage things, so they don't have to wait for me to paint too much. Trash is asking whether I have tested whether I can make various flesh tones with them. Oh, sorry, I was hearing weird noise and I thought something had come on my screen. It's something in the house. I have not, because I was frantically painting to finish up Sophie, and now I'm just frantically preparing to go to Reapercon, so I have not really had the opportunity to sit and play with the Superwashes anymore, much as I might like to. Let's see. Valander is feeling the march of time. Big Apple SD77. What does the Superwash do that is different from other paints? Well, let's do some comparisons, because one of the questions last week was about the consistency. People seem to feel like they're more viscous consistency than they would expect. Although, just to answer the question real quick, I'm going to remove this red lid because that's not... It does something like this. So this is just painted with a coat of Superwash over white. So it's not fully opaque. So it gathers into the crevices, but it still tints the raised areas. Let's look at a few other examples. Now, some of these, I did 2 coats on the boots, because sometimes if you want it a little darker, you have to do that. If you zenithal prime, you get a slightly different effect as well. Where are my zenithal prime guys? This is on white, and then over metallics. So I painted the metallics and then painted the Superwash over the metallics. Hey, Sakurai, I am. This is just, well, this was actually, I did a black wash. So Reaper's black wash, which is somewhere right here. And that gathered more like in the deep recesses, and then I did the Superwashes over it to try to make darker shading. This guy is not, this guy has zenithal prime, but we haven't done anything. Oh, hold on. Where's the other one? Ah, here it is. So this is an orc that has zenithal prime. The colors aren't going to be the same on these because I was mixing and goofing around, but the concept is the same. So this is just over pure white, and then this is over a zenithal prime. And you can see the difference most here on the shield. So this is the same color on both of these. It appears brighter on this because there's a lot more of that white under the surface that is shining through. So you'll get the most vivid, this is like straight over white. You'll get the most vivid effect if you go straight over white, but if you do some pre-shading, or you want to work over these and do, some extra shading coats, which is, I think, what I did on this guy. So it's darker in the recesses of his clothing because I went back in and applied more, but just in the recesses of the clothing. You can apply highlights on top of it, is what I did with this guy. So he had the black wash underneath, then Superwashes, and then I mixed a little white in, just regular white. I used pure white, I think, and did highlights on some spots. So like any other thing in painting, if you're willing to take a little more effort, you can get a little more bang for your buck. Where's my other skeleton? So this one I had done with the black Superwash. Well, I probably had to mix the black because I only had 4 colors for a while. And then this one I did using the Bone shade that is one of the 12 releases. I went over this with white dry brush, and I probably went on this guy too, or I would thin, the next time I paint actual bone with Bone shade, it's not the only thing I would paint with it, I would thin it down a little, probably with that brush on sealer or some other matte medium, to make it just a little more transparent. This is a little darker than I personally like for bone, actual bone, but that is everybody has their taste thing. And then this is an example of, so in this case I thinned the product down. It was, I think this was actually gray primer. I dry brushed it all white before I started with the Superwashes, which I'm not 100% convinced that was worth the trouble. I think it'd be better to take the time to do highlights after than the pre-shading with gray, at least. But on this side, I applied, I thinned down the black Superwash very thin and tried to make a light gray that way, but you get a different effect if this is thinned down a bit and I added some white, and it's a different effect. So you can manipulate, there's only 12 colors to start, but you can manipulate them in various ways to get more color bang for your buck. But let's talk about the consistency thing. Oh, this was wet blending. So you can also blend it directly on the figure. And this is straight on Classic Bones White as well. I washed this, but I didn't prime or do anything else. So like I applied the blue first, and while it was still wet, I put some of the red next to it to create the purple, and then added just straight red at the end. And then the same thing with his limbs, only that was blue to green to yellow. And I do want to do a larger version of this guy now. And finish that one, because for a person who likes dragons, I sure don't paint very many dragons. And then this I was trying over the Flesh Wash, Reaper's Flesh original. So these washes are already out. So the thing that says wash, all of these are already available. These ones that say Superwash are the new thing. So that was, I did this wash all over and then applied the green, because in color theory, red should dull out green because they're opposite each other on the color wheel. And it is duller, but it's, I would want, for an orc, I'd want it duller than that. But this one is a zenithal prime as well. And it's just straight stuff over. I didn't do anything extra. I think we already looked at that guy. All right. We all know weird noises in the house are just 9 out of 10 times a cat. This time I think it was a husband. It was that 10 out of 10 times. Big Apple. I've got speed paints, contrast paints, shade washes. I'm not sure what space these super washes can fill in my paint collection. Maybe they don't. They might not do anything for you. I don't have any products like that, so I've been having a lot of fun with them. Valender says they overcome speed paints. You don't have to change your speed paint system because these don't bleed. We did test reactability, and they did not reactivate with water or even get removed much with scrubbing. Word has it they included alcohol inks in the formulation of speed paints, so some, especially the blues, bleed if you paint over them without fully varnishing them first. I don't know. I certainly have heard from a number of people that the speed paints can reactivate. I don't know what material is in there that is making them do that. I don't know that I'd feel super comfortable mixing acrylics with, like, physically mixing acrylic products with alcohol inks, but I'm not a paint chemist, so what do I know? All right, so I showed you the dilutions. We did that last week. This week, we're going to talk about consistency a little. So I'm going to start with what I generally call this a base coat test, but what this really, the test is this going to add texture to my miniature? Because you don't want that. So when you're applying a base coat of paint, you're painting a layer of paint on for any purpose really, you probably don't want to fill in texture. There are some exceptions to that. I also have used this product and gloss ones. Although I believe Anne has said that we're going to test it, but I think she said that the gloss is less viscous than the brush-on sealer in the Reaper line. Usually a gloss sealer is going to be more viscous. But if you have like scratches on the surface of a miniature or pitting, if you're still painting metal miniatures, putting a coat of this on before your paint can help smooth that out. So if it's supposed to look like a nice silk dress or, smooth woolen cloak or something, you can get it to look that way. But if you do this kind of stuff or thick paint over filigree or something, you are risking filling in that detail. So most of the time, you don't want your paint to be so viscous that it adds texture. I'm just looking for a good size brush to do the test with. I think I put the brush, I would want to use it. This one, maybe the small one. All right, so let's grab just a random bottle of Reaper paint. My assortment, here we go. And I did not, as I usually say, shake all my paints before I started the show. And I would probably recommend that you shake your paint more than you're going to see me do. I may have to use the Buzzy machine. If I get to the point of painting on the Yetis, I will want to use the Buzzy machine. All right, so this is just plain Reaper paint. I'm telling this for myself too because I didn't take the time to do the thing where I like number stuff so I remember what things are. I will now, I probably shouldn't have gone with green because I did bring other green examples. This is the new Reaper Superwash Emerald Green. So my examples are not going to be color matched. And sometimes pigments can affect some of this, but we're going to hope that is not the case. This is Reaper's Flush Wash. This, we'll do the brush on sealer. And I'll keep this fairly close up for this part. We'll probably move the camera for another part. Do the gloss sealer too. That's gloss sealer. That's stopped up gloss sealer. You definitely should shake the brush on sealer and any matte product more than you saw me do just there, because otherwise the matting agent can accumulate in the bottom part and you can get frosting effects when you get to the bottom of your bottle. So we have a wash. What else do we want? Well, I don't have a wide selection of other brands, but I do have some. This is one of my very few model colors, so I'll go ahead and put that in. And I have maintained these though, so these aren't like fresh from the store, so I guess it's possible that I may have added more water to these when I do my maintenance than the way they ship. I don't know. But for what it is, it's the test we have. This is Privateer Press Blood Tracker Brown. And everything else I have is a wash. We'll save it for the speed tests. I don't adopt the Erin Lovejoy unclogging method. What is the Erin Lovejoy unclogging? I'm like, I've certainly seen Erin paint, but I guess the unclogging method didn't make a big impact on me. All right, so my test 4, is this material too viscous to put on a miniature undiluted? Zachariah just found my 1990 GW paints and they're also working. Yeah, these Privateer Press paints got ignored. Like I do paint maintenance, I mean, in theory, every 2 years sometimes, you know, during the, I missed a session. So the last time I did it, it was a lot of fun. But these had been in another box and I'd ignored them for years. And I think like it could be close to 10 years until I had looked at them. It might be more like 5 or 8, but it could be close to 10. And I was really impressed with how good of shape they were in. I think I lost one bottle and I bought like the first release and there was some problem with the gold. So I never did have a working gold because I emailed them and they never sent it to me. But so my test is you're going to draw the brush through. Can we zoom in even more? Yes, we can. And what you want is, if you think of the brush like a boat, you don't want the wake behind it to take very long to fill in. So let's see if, I think this one is a little more viscous. So if you see that line, it does fill in. So what we're looking for, they call it self-leveling, I guess. Let me see if I have one of my art paints, because those are a little thicker than we typically paint with, I think. I even have a green. So this is Permanent Green from, oh, but I had not opened the Permanent Green. All right, I know I've opened one of these, if not more. I opened the Phthalo Blue, and now I'm going to dye myself blue, because I cannot touch Phthalo Blue without dyeing myself blue. All right, so this is Golden's So Flat Matte. This is pretty much their equivalent to the same properties that we tend to prefer in miniature paint. Matte, self-leveling, fairly fluid in consistency. But it is thicker in consistency than the average miniature paint, certainly than the average Reaper paint. So let's try this brush thing again. And you can still see the little part where I entered this drop. It is taking a while to fill in. This is, I mean, they call it self-leveling, but they maybe didn't design this to be painted on 30 millimeter tall figures that have detailed noses and eyelashes and filigree on the armor. So I would thin this paint down before I applied it to a miniature, because I think that would add texture. Not a lot, I mean, probably be able to live with it, but I think that would add texture. So let's do the same test with the other products. This was the Privateer Press, and you can see how much quicker that fills in, but it is still, there's still a little dip in the middle. It's quicker than this, but it's still taking a minute. I would probably add at least just a little bit of water to that. This is the Model Color Dark Sea Blue. And you can see that that is more fluid again, that line fills in really, like you can see the paint on the camera filling in even more than you could see it with the naked eye. Just how quickly it goes. And that's what, in my opinion, what you want for putting paint on a miniature. You want that consistency or even more liquid. So that's regular Reaper paint. Fills in pretty quick, just like the Model Color, which again I may have thinned down to the consistency I prefer. This is the Superwash. There wasn't even, like, it filled in so immediately that there wasn't a wake. It's like it drifted right around the brush, like it stays around the brush the whole time. So this is less viscous than regular Reaper paint. This is the currently for sale Reaper Wash, which again is going to be way too fluid for the test to have much relevance. This is the Brush On Sealer, aka Matte Medium. It is also more fluid than the actual paint out of the bottle from Reaper. This is the Gloss, which seems a little more viscous, but not a lot. In my experience, I am kind of careful doing that sealer thing. The sealer thing works better if something is viscous. So if I had a really thick paint, I could do it with really thick paint too. But you want to smooth out the edges and make sure that you aren't adding texture to your miniature. Aaron was on House of X last night and used a pair of scissors and just cut the tip off a bottle and a drill. I guess if you mainly airbrush, you don't care about actual drops. But no, if I had a tip that was bad, I have a little stock of extra tips and I would just throw it in and get a new one. So that's one consistency test. I have some other, well, let's actually, I might as well check on the primer because I think sometimes primer does need to be diluted a little more. So this is gray primer. Reaper also makes black and white primer. And you certainly don't want to add too much texture to your miniature, like with the primer level. So, oh, that's not too bad. So does my test make sense to you and seem legitimate? I'm going to do another test on the super washes and some of these other products. I'm going to hope that it works because it's been interesting with the camera because this is going to depend on gravity. I'm zooming out a little. All right, so I have a foam plate. I am going to put drops of these products on the foam plate, and then I'm going to tilt it for a few seconds, and whichever goes faster is a more liquid, more fluid consistency, and whichever ones go slowly are more viscous. So that seems like another way to test viscosity. And I'm going to grab a metallic paint too, because those are typically less fluid. So I got Dwarven Gold. My problem is getting everything in the... Yeah, so at some point I'm going to do this, which is, I mean, you're not going to be able to see anything. If I go further out, can you see anything? If I do that. Yeah, okay. Maybe I won't tilt it like all the way. I'll tilt it like that. Or I'll just do this first. Yeah, if I do that, you might be able to see it. All right, we'll give that a shot. Let's see. Solar Wind with 2 V's. Thank you for your blog. I've been painting the Reaper Freedie you did, and your guide has been extremely helpful. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. Well, actually, I should be doing just one drop. That came out in a big gloop. That's okay. We can start again. I guess if I were smart, maybe I'd do this side so that they will get all over my desk. Maybe 2 drops is better. That seems very small. All right, so Reaper Dwarven Gold. Do the grass green again. Reaper grass green. And apparently that bottle had bombs too, but it is what it is. We'll do the Superwash now. This is the Superwash Emerald Green. What else have I got? I've got the original wash, flesh wash. Why don't I do black? Because I think I might already show flesh wash or something. Black. And in fact, you can, I mean, if you look closer, you can already tell that these are more fluid than those. Like the drops are spreading out more. But I will be thorough in my testing because this appears to be a very big concern for people that these are way too viscous. I think they need a certain amount of viscosity, and it seemed to me that the other products that people have mentioned as being kind of similar, I don't have any, but I've watched a lot of videos with them, and I think they need a certain amount of viscosity so that they'll go where you want them but not drift everywhere. I have a Game Color wash. Just throw that in for fun. I have a bunch of other stuff, but I'll keep this test fairly simple for now, and then I'll try to come back to this. I'll do a video on my own YouTube channel like I did before for easier reference. This is, oh no, let's not do the gloss sealer. This is the product I recommend using to dilute the super washes if you want them to maintain their super washy properties. All right, so now let's let gravity have a go at this. All right, boom. Wow, those Reaper washes sure do seem gel-like and viscous, don't they? I'll tilt this way just for a minute and then come back. So, as I expected, the metallic was a little goopier. This is the normal Reaper paint. This is the Superwash, emerald green one. This is the regular wash. This is the Viejo paint. This is a Viejo wash, and this is the brush-on sealer. So, hopefully that answers the question, at least, you know, on a starting level of how viscous is this product. And I would say not very. Oh, I did have a Liquitex ink. Perhaps next time. I have a whole bunch of weird things that I was digging up. So I was looking for, I have paint sets that I put together for my classes, and I could not find the bin that I had put those in. And my husband and I were looking, and I found this other bin that had stuff like mediums and stuff that I had packed away before we got our floor done and that I hadn't been able to find. But I opened it, and I took a ball out, and it's empty. And I'm like, oh, crap, that means something went all over this bin. And my husband's like, well, wouldn't it have evaporated? And I look at the bottle, and it's drying retardant. And I'm like, nope, this is literally the product, the point of which is to evaporate way more slowly. And yeah, it's all at the bottom. It's very yuck. But hopefully it hasn't messed anything up, because I think I was compulsive enough to put everything into plastic bags. All right, so is there some other thing that you guys would like me to do with super washes? Which can include just painting a miniature with them more. Or I will jump over to my Yetis, perhaps. I feel like there was something else I was going to do. I don't know. But before I put my elbow in that, get rid of it. Mix them with liners to change the color, to change the consistency. Is there a particular aspect of mixing them with liners that you would like to see? And that will be blue liner, because I don't have any other liners by my desk. I don't think. No. So I have my little kit of Sophie paint still over here. The paints that I was using to paint that Sophie, but I didn't use any liners other than blue on her, so I don't have them with me. What's a good color to mix with? Do a couple. Mr. IDEJ would like to see me paint with the superwashes and see them in action. Pendrake just wants to see what will happen. What will happen is that they will considerably darken the superwash. The liners. I mean, they're pretty potently dark. So I got that was the Gilded Yellow. This is the Templar Red. I'm not sure that even doing one drop will probably be enough to overpower, but all right, we'll do a drop and test. I'll do it with the red because we know everything overpowers yellow. So yeah, one to one. I mean, it is purpley. You can see the color change, but I'm pretty sure that we have lost, I mean, I just put water in that, but I'm pretty sure that we've lost the transparency factor. And we probably have lost some of the flow as well. Which isn't to say that I wouldn't use liners to darken this. I mean, as I said, I was using regular white paint to make them lighter. I don't think there's a problem with using regular paint to make them darker, but it's a question of how much. So if I do that, that was just a little bit on my brush, it's still a lot darker, but I think I've maintained more of the transparency and more of its original flow properties. I need just a little more water on my palette. I will paint with them for a little bit, but I'm going to move the palette out of view because, apologies for the OCD people. The camera has a lot of trouble focusing if the palette and the figure are both in frame. So I'm not trying to hide anything I'm doing. I'm not going to be mixing these unless I say I'm going to be mixing them. This is just because you probably won't see anything if I don't do this. Well, anyway, I move this. Apparently there's going to be a stain or a water drop. Who do I want to paint on? I'm going to do the underside of his wings the same way. I don't think I'll finish him today, but at least do that. And maybe I'll put some paint on these forks. So one thing about these, and I'd say it's true of any, wash transparent type paint. If I want to use the same paints on his little jockey shorts, I need to paint this white again, or you're going to see the green coat. And I, in fact, will do this so that you know what I mean. As soon as I figure out where I put my... So let's see, what would be a good color to test that with? We'll do it with the blue. Well, actually, no. I mean, it needs to be purple, right? It might not show up as much because I'm going to pick the purple, but I'm going to use the Drow Violet. Full strength. And my guess is that it will either make it look darker or change the color somewhat, but it will be evident. And even more so if you do a color like yellow or red over spots like that. So ideally, I would want to clean that up before I added additional colors. And then this side is more how I wanted it, where that washes underneath, which again will have some effect on the color. I'm not following very good wash practices because I have like 3 leading edges now. But regular viewers know that I don't always practice what I preach. So the red that I'm painting over, the reddish color, is the classic Reaper Flesh Wash. So I can do that live on a miniature for you to see as well. So yeah, where the purple was, it looks teal. It's actually a really pretty color, but it doesn't look the same as where the purple is not. So that is kind of why you have to clean up when you do stuff like that. And now I'm checking for the bits that I missed, because I always miss bits. Like you can see, I missed it with the green right there. And I think that was this green. Let's just try to glop a bit on there, maybe. Maybe no one will ever notice. All right, so that is, we'll come back again and look at that after to compare whether you can see where I goofed with the green versus didn't goof. I goofed on this guy a little too, I think. But let's just put some of that purple down on something just so that we have a comparison for what it looks like. This guy just kind of has ended up being test work. So I will put some purple on this one of his pieces of leg armor. And then we'll have that for a color comparison purpose, since this is just over straight white and that other one was over both where I goofed and reddish wash. Now let's see who I was going to do. The cute dragon. All right, so that was the blue, which is Tempest blue, into the red. Well, the lighter red. There are two reds. So there's Templar red and then, no, that's magenta. Blood-kissed red. And the colors actually may be slightly different. So he was painted when I only had the prototypes. I had 5 colors of prototypes. Red, yellow, blue, green, and maybe brown. Like I had the black eventually, but the first color I was sent was, I think, ended up being the color of one of the browns, but the viscosity was like way off. I had to thin it down so much to make it act like the rest of them. So that's the blue, and I get some Templar red. And as I said before, this is just straight up old, classic plastic bones. But I did wash, I think probably dipped him in isopropyl alcohol. But if he's really old, I might have just washed him with like dish soap and then rinsed it off. So I went about to the join with the blue. I mean, not that the bottom of wing has to look the same as the top of wing, right? Many animals, that is not the case. So you do want to put down a pretty generous amount of it because you want there to be enough to fall into the crevices. So you can do color mixing right on the thing, and if I feel like I need a little more blue, I can just get a little blue. Do that. Since blue is stronger than this red, I'm going to start out on the edge and work back to the purple to keep the tips the nice bright red. And maybe there needs to be just a little more purple here in the middle, so I just get to that blue. As with any wash or fluid paint, I think it can be helpful for you to have gravity be your partner. So if I were trying to paint this and wanting it to come out nice, I might, set them up so it could sit like this for a while to give the wash time to seep into the recesses and stuff. And as I say, I do this with regular washes as well. This guy had a little leg incident, so it's very old. This is whenever this was released is when I got it. It was that Kickstarter. And then he has spent his life tossed in a bin with a bunch of other these. And alas, I think they must have been fighting when I wasn't looking, and his leg got hurt. So he's not as sturdy as he would be if I had taken better care of him. No, I'm going too soon. I need more blue. pieces. So it'll be interesting to see if the colors seem a little different when he dries, because I had prototype versus actual now. I think I got all the little white spots. I don't love the way this is transitioning, so I'm just going to get a little more of the red and more of the blue. And that is, yes, his foot is disconnected at the ankle. That was the incident I mentioned. I didn't even notice that until I almost finished painting him the other week. Or I would have, did I have another one of these? I don't think I had this guy. I think I had another one, but I might not have. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to buy another one of these when I'm at Reapercon and paint it a similar way, because he's super cute. But we'll just, I think what I came up with for a story when I was painting him the other day is he's phasing in. So he didn't quite get it right. He'll fix that in a minute. But that's what it looks like wet. We will return to that and see if it looks like this side. It looks to me like it's richer. I think they might have increased the pigment to binder ratio over the prototypes, but we'll find out. What else could I work on? That is one thing I found with these, because you can't put wet paint next to wet paint, or it'll drift into each other. You saw that on some of my color samples. I got a little too close while things were still wet and colors drifted, which I just used that on purpose on the dragon. But if you don't want that to happen, you want to alternate the areas you're painting, or I found I enjoyed working on 2 or 3 miniatures at the same time when I was working on these guys before. This was, I mixed up an ogre skin the other day, and then I realized that I did not paint his feet, because of course I didn't. And this was a custom mixed color, so fun for me. Do I remember what I did? I don't. I would probably have to go back to the video and watch it, but I guess I could try and find out. I think I want to try some of the leather colors and stuff on his gear. So one of the values of swatching stuff out is I know what the colors are going in, and that can be very useful. You may have seen that I had little swatches on my bottles. And there are several swatch episodes on this that we've done on this show. So if you go back and watch the archives on YouTube, do I know what episode numbers they are? Sadly, I do not. But there are several episodes where we talk about different ways of doing swatches. That was the one I ended up with, but you can do them on paper. I had little plastic sample fingernails. You do them on the black plastic spoons. It's just useful, though, to know what the actual colors are instead of trying to guess what colors are when you're applying them to things. So I would like his shield to look like old wood, and I think kind of in between those two. So I might add a drop of the leather brown in with the bone shade, mix those together and try that on his shield. Quindy is directing you to the Reaper YouTube channel where you can find this, and I believe she also very kindly organizes all of the Reaper shows into playlists, so you can go flip through those. Unfortunately, I don't think there's we don't put it in the description or anything, and I'm terrible. I suppose if I remembered to name the shows, I would tell Quindy the names, and then she would put that on the YouTube. But maybe I'll try to get better at that. Sometimes I don't decide straight away. So I'll bring the palette back into view so that you can see how they mix. And out of curiosity, let's try that first. I'm going to try the bone wash with a little bit of that violet. So I want to have a pretty high proportion. I liked kind of that was one where it drifted, but I would like to kind of do it on purpose. but I don't want it to get like too obviously purple. That would be a strange color for old wood. And it's going to be hard to tell on here. That's one of the things about these, where having a 3D swatch might become more of a thing. So I was figuring when the Base Boss toppers are done, I was going to see if I can mooch some while I'm at Reapercon, to be honest. But I think those might be a good surface to kind of do swatches for this type of paint on. So the actual good practice for washes that I was not doing before is you want to try to break things up in sections and keep a leading wet edge. So, you know, this piece of steel or whatever iron that's holding the door that has become a shield together is a break point that I'm messing up, but it's a break point, so I don't have to worry about this edge. I just have to worry about that edge at the back. Whereas if I started in the middle, if I started painting the wood in the middle, I would then have the edge going towards the front and the edge going towards the back. And it is possible that one side of that could start to dry before I finish applying paint, and that's one way you get streaks and rings and other unattractive things that happen with washes or glazes. I mean, even base coats. It's not going to happen with base coats because you're going to want a solid opaque coat of paint. But anything where you're working transparent, you want to do the leading edge thing if you can. Some shapes are just tougher than others to do it with. You know, this is nice because it's all broken up. And now it's, you know, it's the space between his hand and that metal band. This is where it might be tricky for me to keep all the whites white. I might have to go back and paint a few things, but if you're quick, you can rub any paint off, but this stuff definitely seems not too challenging to, you know, you get your brush damp and you just wipe it off. If I need to, I even have an eraser brush, so cut down an old flat, and that makes it even scrubbier, and that can work even on paint that's started to dry slightly. And if you're too rough, you can bring up paint that hasn't fully cured. We talked about this last week, but I think we have some people who weren't here then. Acrylic paint, we think it dries right away. It touch dries very quickly. It is not cured in the full sense of the paint for minimum 24, probably more like 48 hours, depending on the climate where you live, humidity and stuff like that. If you've ever had your house painted, the painters may even have said, you know, be careful moving furniture around or whatever for the next couple of days until the paint is fully dry. That's the same thing. So one of the ways you can make your paint jobs sturdier on your gaming miniatures is to paint them well in advance of the game so that the paint has time to toughen up. And not handle. You see how I have the miniature on one of these holders and I'm trying not to touch it too much. Partly that's not to get finger oils on it, which will also affect your durability of your paint film. But it's also so that I'm not, you know, rubbing off the paint and damaging it during the painting process. Since all this trim is metal and I would paint it over with metallics anyway, I'm going to start being slightly less careful. Painting non-metallic metals with these would be a bit of a challenge, I would say. Because the thing that makes non-metallic metals work is where you're putting light and dark, and I don't have as much control over that with washes as I would with a more deliberate paint application method like layering. So these things are metal too. I'm not going to sweat working around them. I mean, honestly, if I were painting for real, I also wouldn't. You guys have seen me. I'm a sloppy painter. I'll make things quick where I can and then just do the cleanup and stuff at the end and as more precision is required. But this is why someone who has been diligently learning good tabletop painting skills is much better at this than I am. Like precision. There's different kinds of precision, and this one I don't have as much of. I used it all up painting tiny eyeballs. And lettering. And what other boring, precise things do I do? Well, not all the precise things are boring. I wouldn't say that painting eyes is fun exactly, but one of the reasons I paint eyes first, it just started out as a practical thing, because if I really messed it up, then I could just, strip the paint off the figure and start over. But I came to like it because they're just more interesting to me once they have a face. Like, I enjoy interacting, I enjoy looking at the miniature more. I know some painters who say they feel like it's creepy, they feel like it's staring at them or whatever, but it gives it the personality, and then I just have more fun with the paint. You will get some bubbles. I have found you will get bubbles painting over any textured material, particularly if you're painting fast and sloppy. Because somebody was freaking about that on my YouTube video too, and it's like, I thought I had even said that on the video, that I always get bubbles when I paint quickly over textured materials. I'm going to do my little trick, which for those who weren't here last week, you get this canned air. You can, press full strength, but you can really slightly press. Now, you don't want to, typically I like to let the paint set a little, because you can totally blow paint, and like I could have sprayed the poor orc that's standing behind him if I'd been a little too vigorous with that. I think I'm seeing a spot I missed. Just kind of move some product around there too. So if I didn't like that it was pooling here, I could try to carefully, but I will mess with it. At a certain point, any glazes, washes, anything that's drying like that, you need to just step off with the brush and let it finish, and then come back and fix stuff later. So that is the leather brown mixed, no, that was the bone shade mixed with a little bit of the drow violet. And let's compare the color. Well, that's not really going to work until it dries, I don't think. No, it was the leather brown. I think I did the wrong one. Oh, well. I'll do that bone shade thing on something else. I wanted to use that color on one of his leathers, but okay. Let's see. Kiriniko, what if you thrive on the stress of finishing the minis 10 minutes before the players turn up? Then don't let them touch the miniatures too much. Well, don't let them throw them around. That's when you do the Bobby Jackson thing, a couple of base coat colors, and then duck in with min marks. Even if I can, I would want to paint, let it cure, seal, let it cure, and sealing could include min marks, if you're Bobby Jackson in particular. So what else we got? We do some of the browner leather, chestnut brown. I'm going to, I'll try it full strength on a couple of panels, and then I think I might add a little bit of the brush on sealer, the matte medium. I feel like it's a little more, I don't know if I want to say opaque. I think I would just want to see what it looks like with a little more transparency. But, this is clearly not the kind of guy who takes super good care of his equipment. So it would make sense that not all the panels would be identical. Let's see. I don't know if this kilt thing might be something else, though. Just seems like it would be a good idea to work on this belt, because a lot of stuff is over it. And these may be areas that I'm going to have to clean with white paint, and that's fine. Like that skull that I'm getting stuff all over. As more people buy these next weekend, you'll start to see people who actually know how to do this using these products. not just insane display painters. But I am excited about using these for some of our board game miniatures, I think. This belt is weird. Some of this and the crevices. I'll come back with the chestnut brown. So this is also over straight classic bones that I dipped in isopropyl. He seems like he's a little more hydrophobic than the little dragon was. And by hydrophobic, I mean resisting liquids that have very much water in them. You can usually put paint directly over bones, including this, because it's medium that's making it transparent. It's not water. But sometimes you'll get a bit of beating up, and then you just need to do another coat. All right, so I was just putting dark stuff in the crevices, basically. Probably should have got the black for that even. I think I will get the black for the crevices on his kilt. I want those to be nice and shadowed. That's going to be too much wet paint near each other. So I'm going to do the full strength chestnut brown right here. And yes, there is an existing Reaper paint called Chestnut Brown. This was pointed out to Ron when they announced these on Reaper Live. I do not know if there is a plan to change the name, or if, since the name of this is Superwash Chestnut Brown, they are going to call that good enough. But one of the things about this being a new product is they want to know what we think. So if you get some of these and you use them and you have thoughts, let Reaper know. If you have thoughts about how cat hair gets stuck in your paint, don't let Reaper know that. But you can share your pain with me. So this is the still the chestnut brown, but I thinned it slightly, or diluted it. I didn't make it thinner because I used medium. So we talk about thinning, but we're always, whenever you add something to paint, other than more paint, you're making it more transparent. But whether or not you're changing the viscosity depends on what you're adding. So adding water also, makes something more transparent and makes the viscosity more watery, more fluid. Adding something like medium might keep it similar or the same. In this case, I think it's slightly more fluid. I don't know, we probably really won't be able to tell the difference until it's dry, but in this it kind of works, because then it's like the one that was full strength is a little more shadowed. Oops, maybe that was too much. And that'll be the underlying area that should be more shadowed because it's receiving less sun. So I guess I could also try doing that is kind of a wet blendy thing. Let's try that. Let's get some. I'm gonna use some of the darker brown, the leather brown. We're going to do something kind of like the wings on the dragon, but the point here will be trying to create more shadow where this plate is sloping downwards. And then have it a little lighter here at the top. So you can mix on your brush or on the miniature. It doesn't have to be, you don't always have to do mixes in advance on your palette. Well, we'll see if that worked. You know, I like to experiment. Call that an experiment. I feel like I could probably do the other side as well. Not mixing quite as much as I want. Come back in there. I mean, it was doing a cool swirly thing, which might be a neat effect for like an orb or something like that. But I wanted more of a, this is getting less light effect. All right, let's see. I think this guy's pants are dry, so we can go back to examining him. So I had gotten green about down to there. And I think if you look, I can see it. I'm not sure it's as visible on the camera or not. But there's this like really, it made this really beautiful teal, actually, applying the purple over the green in that section. And then this is what it looks like just straight up. Remembering that there is like a flesh wash reddish color. This was under everything that I painted on that guy. So it's under the green and under this purple. So I like that kind of. I wonder if it does that if we mix it on the palette. If I can make that cool teal color. I'm going to move that away from all of my manly armor mixes though. Because sometimes you will get a different effect painting a transparent thing over something else than you will get if you mix the two together. This is less so in acrylics than in some other kinds of paint. But yeah, it is a little bit of a teal. Isn't that interesting? Piece of... That was unintentional. I'm over here painting on stuff that I didn't want to paint on. So that's with the purple and the green mixed together. There's with a little more purple. Starting to go blue. This is the original green. And this is the original Drow Violet. So you can get some interesting effects mixing different things together. That's just a little bit of the violet. Black isn't always your best option to darken things down. It's good to try colors like that. You'll often get a richer, more interesting mix than you would with a black. But let's get the black and just see what happens. We had to explain to a player why they had to clean their pizza grease covered fingers before touching your minis. So for board gamers, it's Cheetos. Like Cheetos are the horror. And pretty much anyone that's played board games for more than 5 seconds does not put Cheeto finger. You know, you have a napkin and you wipe off the Cheeto dust, and then you touch the games. But we had someone who, I think she was more there because she was interested in hanging out with people, so she wasn't like inherently a gamer. And it was like, we made it through about a game and a half, and then we're like, you have to use a napkin. I'm sorry, you have to use a napkin. Pendrake, is this your usual wet palette? Did you get the one from the Barrowgate box? I did not. I was sent the swag box. I was not sent the whole Barrowgate box. So my understanding is that I didn't bring it with me. So the palette is also made by Game Envy, and I have a palette from their recent Kickstarter, but I don't know how similar it is to the one that is going to be in the swag box. I don't know if Reaper and Game Envy collaborated on like a specific design or if it's just like a color thing. I would have liked to be able to answer that question, but probably not until I get back from Reapercon. Hopefully I'll manage to snag them one then. And I do like my Game Envy palette a lot. This is the Redgrass palette, which I like, but I think I probably like the Game Envy one a little better. In terms of paletting, I don't think there's a huge difference. And one thing this one does that I like a lot is the Redgrass. It has a texture so that your sponge isn't slipping around. It's not a huge thing. It's not like the sponge slipping around has ever, ruined my day or whatever. Both of them have these sponges where it does this. It does this wrinkle thing when there's not enough water, which is really nice because you can tell when you need to add water to your palette. You can see like that. I don't know if you can see it. It's retreating because I added the water. And the Game Envy sponge does that too. I have not liked the paper that came with the red grass. I do like the paper that comes with the Game Envy. As far as I can tell, it seems very similar to just parchment paper, so I don't know if there's actually any difference. This is the Game Envy paper, and this is a piece of Kroger paper. And I don't think I have the paper from the red grass sponge handy. But I found it really difficult to control keeping the paint wet. I found it difficult to keep the paint wet, which kind of seems like the opposite of what you want in a wet palette. But it does rinse off and you can reuse it, so that is not a lie. Quindy, Anne had one earlier. It looked like it was the smaller size of the Game Envy one. I don't know if there was a color difference, but it looked to me to be the same model from their Kickstarter. Well, just give me 1 second, and I will pick up the Game Envy. So this is now, do I know which size I ordered? No. So this is the Redgrass version 2 small, which is slightly different. And this is the Game Envy. And actually, give me 1 minute. If you have any familiarities with wet palettes, you are probably familiar with the Masterson Stay Wet. That was like the first one. So we can compare the sizes that way. I have not used this thing since getting those other ones. Very happy with my new ones. So I'll get the red grass lid. It'll be easier to tell. So it's narrower, but it's about the same length. I use this for the show because it is a smaller footprint, and my desk space is very constrained. But also I like the other one better. This lid I do not love on the red grass. The way it seals, and this is, me. I don't think this is a palette problem. This is me problem. It's a little harder to get up. It's getting a bit easier the longer I have it. But I have some hand and wrist problems, and I would just prefer to not have to worry about that. Where the Game Envy one has the latches, so that works better for me. So this is the Game Envy tray. Compare it to the red grass, and then I'll compare it to the Masterson. Again, I don't know what size. I feel like I probably got a smaller one, but I don't know. This, I don't know if it was Kickstarter only, the little copper foil thing. You can get stuff like that. You can get copper sheeting at the hobby store and stuff. Somewhere along the line, I managed to get paint on myself. This is why I wear crappy shirts when I paint usually. This is the sponge. This is slightly damp. I just rinsed this out before the show. I had all my Sophie paints on here, and I wanted to remember to rinse it out before well, actually, I'll be bringing this with me, so I had to rinse it out so I could bring it with me. Then this is the lid. So when you put the lid on, it's a bit thicker than the other two, but that's because you've got this nifty storage thing. So I'll have a place to do washes and glazes built in. I rarely ever do this, but you can rest your brushes on there, and then that's more washy mixy type thing. If you keep your little plastic gizmos you can put on top of the brushes, you can store them in there. I may store sculpting tools or something in there instead. So I like the fact that it has this compartment for traveling, because it doesn't matter when I'm at home, and when I'm traveling I do have a buttload of stuff with me. This is a feature that I don't think the other ones have. You can control whether you want it to be airtight or not with this little rubber seal, because with the other kind, depending on your climate, you'll end up leaving the lid kind of ajar to prevent a ton of water getting in. Have I figured out the magic ratio of even leaving that thing open? To me, a wet palette is a tool to use during a session. I don't expect my paint to be perfectly preserved. Usually I find it gets too watery by the next day rather than getting too thickened up. So I'll like reconstitute it if I have to, but I far prefer to paint with fresh paint, or I use the, for anyone who has seen Anne's show and she's got that ceramic palette, that's what I do when I want to do really good blends. So for Sophie's non-metallic metal, actually, hold on, I still have it. I'll get it. Be right back. I do this. So this is a ceramic palette, and I get these sponges super wet, and I put it over there. This paint is, I'm going to say at least more than a week old. Now, I have not done, this works best if I go in every few days and add water to the paint, which I haven't done since, sorry, touched the side of my lamp. I haven't done since I finished painting. I've kept it because I was kind of like, if I have time, maybe I want to touch some stuff up. I don't think I have time, but if I had been good about coming back in and putting water in and adding extra paint, even if I needed to. But when I do my super precise blending, this is what I use. I don't use a wet palette for that. I mean, obviously I use a wet palette, but I don't use it for that. Yeah, this white's still in pretty good shape. And I forgot to check the sponges a couple of days ago. So this is my, if I really want to preserve paint, I want the reverse wet palette where I put the sponges on top. Do I have someplace to put this? No, I do not. I'll put it down here for now. Yes, we'll just paint on these guys some more. Let's see. Oh, it's starting to dry. And I think that kind of worked where, you know, the more opaque dilution for where it's more shadowed, and then added a little of the medium. Sorry. I have trip brain. I get very stressed out before trips, worrying about forgetting things and having everything be ready. I almost canceled. I was like, nope, there's like 4 million things I should be doing. But I wanted people to have another chance to see these paints in action before they go on sale. The door isn't 100% dry, like I wouldn't start painting the other areas, but I think it is dry enough for us to see, and also to see that I shouldn't have messed around touching stuff. But let's see if I can fix that a little. Or at least make it look like a different, you know, an organic type of damage instead of a person doing stupid things with their brush kind of damage. Should be. It's got some bits hanging down, but I don't think right there was one of them. The experiment of doing the shading thing hasn't quite dried, but the other way to do that would be to, you know, do it after and just come in and do more coats. So I'm gonna use some of that darker brown and the reddish brown, and you know, nothing stops me from adding more coats if I want to take the time. So I believe that they are a flexible tool. What else could I paint on him? I should have taken the hairdryer and fixed this a little, but I did not. Let's look at the Zenithal Prime guy for a while. We'll try that same leather on the Zenithal Prime. So this is the version where I slightly diluted it with the medium. So in theory, we should see more of that effect. You know, we should see more shadow on this lower plate where more of the black primer is still showing. And then less of it on this side where I sprayed the light from here, I think. This is the Bones USA figure. That has been, I just used straight paint, I think. I don't think I used primer. Let's see, do his leather plates for the other pieces of armor the same color. And I did find that I would do that when I was doing my test figures, that if I had a mix on my palette that was good for something on some other figure, I'd just go ahead and use it on the other figure. Do the straps while I'm here. It's just now occurring to me to wonder whether the feet should have been green as well, like how this armor works exactly. I think it's going to be leather because I didn't do it then. Take the black and come on the underhangs. Make nice dark shadows. I mean, this is something you could even use opaque paint for, but since it's already kind of dark gray down there, it shouldn't take too much effort. I think I'm going to paint the toe parts all metal, not just the spikes on them, so I'll just leave them for now. But I'll do this shoulder pad armor in the same color. Although I did not clean up the green, so hopefully it's just going to make a darker brown, but we may see some funky color things happen. Just finish this pad and then check that we haven't had questions that I've missed in the chat. He's got an arm piece as well. I mean, not that ogres, I mean not ogres, orcs. Neither ogres nor orcs are super matchy-matchy, I imagine, but maybe he's a little more fashion forward. And also, the first rule of tabletop painting, I guess, is make your life easy, right? Why make it harder? So, give that a sec to dry, and then compare what it looks like over, you know, the straight white. I can already see some effect from the zenithal, I think, but it's harder to see on camera because of the shininess. Oh, we had some raiders. Chaotic Tiefling, ATL. Hello. Probably Atlanta, but I'm not sure. Quindy did think Anne's palette was red, so maybe they did all red ones for the swag, or maybe that was a coincidence. I don't know. Hopefully it's red to match Reaper's logo. Quindy thinks that the swag, which is the barrel gate. So the swag box is the one I showed you guys, and I'll show it briefly maybe again while we wait for paint to dry. But, oh, it looks like I have a lot to catch up on in the chat.
All right, so Cheeto dust is applied with a device that looks like a cement mixer. The Cheetos leave the oven on a conveyor belt. They get dumped into the mixture where there's hot oil, and then the dust is drizzled on them. Spiral blades scoop them up after a few turns to get them coated. It's a continuous feed. Interesting. So to go back to the palette question, Quinny said it looked like Anne had the smaller size of the Game Envy one, but now she's not sure if she's mixing up whether there were multiple sizes of Game Envy. Redgrass definitely has 2 different sizes, and those Kickstarters did happen. I think the Game Envy one happened like a month or 2 before the other one, because I pledged in one, and then I'm like, oh, but now I also want the other one. And now there's one on Amazon that I want. So at some point I'm going to get that and justify my life by doing like a comprehensive review of these palettes. Trash confirms that the Redgrass is the one that has 2 sizes, and the Exemplar had different color options. So we're pretty sure that Anne's palette is the same as what I showed. We're not 100% sure, but we're pretty sure. Trash opted for the black one, but Mrs. Trash got red. I went with the blue. In the end, it doesn't matter because the tray part is gray, and that's nice and neutral, and that's what you want when you're painting. I think I picked blue because I like the color red, but I didn't want anything distracting me visually while I'm painting, like strong colors to distract me visually. For the sake of the Raiders who have just arrived, I am trying out Reaper's new Superwashes. So the color I'm actually using is Superwash Chestnut Brown. And then this color was the leather brown, but I mixed in a little bit of Drow Violet just to shift the color a smidge. And I'm also, this was applied over like a plain white bones, and then I applied the same color over a figure that had been zenithal primed. So first sprayed with black and then with white over that, so that it has some areas that are darker, and that will, since the Superwashes are a semi-transparent product, what is underneath will affect how they look. So I was goofing around with these guys a little. This is a previous one. I did the green previously, and then I had messed up and gotten green on the shorts. And what you would do if you want everything to look consistent is just paint white paint over that. But just to see what happened, I applied the Drow Violet directly over, and it actually made a pretty kind of teal color. And then I didn't goof up on the back, so that's just straight Drow Violet. I also was showing how you can kind of use them to wet blend. So I had done this part of him earlier with prototypes of the product. So I was sent bottles, unlabeled bottles like this, and this is what the actual product looks like. And I would say that yes, there are some color changes between the prototypes and the original, because this is prototypes and this is the retail version, which again is a soft release. So if anyone gets any of these and you have feedback for Reaper, they are interested in getting that feedback. So yes, I would say that this is a much richer color than this, and you can turn those colors into this by adding matte medium, which in Reaper's case is called brush on sealer, but you can use it as matte medium. There are other companies make a similar product. So if I wanted the look to be more like this, I would just add matte medium, and it would show more of the white underneath. I'm just fixing some of that purple. I made too much of a bloop. Presumably the same is true of the green that I had used. I used the blue to the green to the yellow on his arms, and I imagine that those are equally a little beefed up in the final version of the product. Well, not final, because like I said, soft release. If people have comments, they can respond to those and change the product. So this is an example of the zenithal prime thing again. This is the same color, but this was applied straight over white, and this is an area of the miniature. If it's gray. There's no true white here other than on the tops of these metal spikes, just because of the orientation of that object on the figure from when I was doing the priming. But you can see that it dulls it down as well as makes it a little darker. It's a different color. I used a different color for the skin. This guy's kind of just ended up being test ogre. And this was a comparison
There was regular, so we already had some washes. This is flesh wash, which is more like a regular wash, and I had applied that all over. You can see a bit of the color there to both the skin area and the little shorts area. Then I did the green over, because that one way to dull green down is to add red. So it didn't dull it down as much as mixing other stuff in, but it did dull it down compared to, I think that's more like the original green out of the bottle. Oh, again, that's a prototype one, I think. So these shorts have red underneath them, and I painted the leg plate on this just to show what that purple color is straight up. Although the dragon is missing part of its egg. I think it's broken, so I think it got crushed. I've had this guy in a bin with a ton of miniatures for a long time, and I think it got crushed, and it didn't break off. It's just not attached right now. I did not realize that when I picked him out to paint. My in-game explanation is that he's phasing in. These are all 12 of the colors. And because the point of the material is to lightly tint upraise texture and subtle into crevices, it is useful to swatch them out on a 3D surface, where for regular paints, I do swatches like this on the bottle. Your eyes are not going max styles. There is something wrong with that dragon's leg, and I feel bad for him, but I still like him because he turned out pretty. So these are the 12 starting colors, which, as I've been trying to show, you can mix and get some other colors. You can also add, let's try adding some, well, white wouldn't be my preference. Let's try adding some of this yellow mold to the Chestnut Brown. And I'll try to do some highlights on this guy's leather. Even though I did, I added a little bit of medium to make it thinner so that more of the white showed through. But we'll show what the effect is if you do highlights on top. So this is just the straight chestnut, so I'll just use that. But I'm being conservative. This is a very opaque paint that I'm mixing into a transparent paint, so it's probably going to have a lot more of an effect on it than it would if this was an equivalent non-transparent color. So when you're mixing, if you're mixing like a strong color or a dark color into another color, you want to do it that way. So if I want to make orange, I'm not going to put out like a drop of the yellow and a drop of the red and mix it together. Red is a way more potent color than yellow. So if I just get a little bit of the red and mix it in, I'm more likely to get an orange straight out of the gate instead of having something that looks mostly red and then I have to add like drops and drops and drops of yellow to get it to more orange. And it's the same thing if you're adding something more opaque to something more transparent. Do that, a similar kind of thing. I did mean to show what happens when you add the black. Is this the black? Yes. To colors. Although it is a chromatic black, it's a blue black. So I might still keep, just like I would use white or something like that for the highlights, I might still keep a true black around to mix in if I want more of a true black effect. So this is the Superwash Black, and it's going to work well as a shade for green because dark blue does work well as a shade for green. But you get a different color again. But I wanted to do highlighty stuff for a minute. And highlights, highlights often work better if they're more opaque than shadows. So the way these paints work is kind of contrary to how our eyes work. Which is fine. I mean, it's a speed thing. It can be worth the speed to not have a perfect art thing. I'm just mentioning that using more opaque paints in highlights is actually like a form of contrast that is very effective. And it is a different effect than using make it even lighter highlights. Now here I really should be adding some medium. I don't want it to be this is not the best color to be demonstrating this probably. I should have something more yellowy being added instead of washing it out. It does kind of turn into a flesh color though. So let's see if I have anyone I could add a flesh color to that wouldn't look weird. Well, we can just do it on this test guy. It'll be on his armor, but what I would probably rather do to make sure that I maintain the properties as well as possible. So I had taken the thinned down, slightly diluted chestnut, so it had a little bit of medium in it, and added in some of this yellow mold. But what I think might work better is we have some yellow and mix in some of that chestnut. I don't think I have any pure chestnut left. I adulterated all of the chestnut. And because this was superwash to superwash, I actually could have mixed it directly now that I think about it. And I will. It'd still be too much yellow. But see, and then I'll get just true straight up white. This is pure white. This is an almost empty bottle of pure white. And I might want to add just a little medium to maintain the transparency properties. Let's try applying this one over this other plate. Okay, I'm not sure if I had water in on my brush. At first I think I did. So I would say that the chestnut is a very good starting point for flesh type colors. That really kind of makes his armor look a little creepy, doesn't it? He's a little bit Buffalo Bill. So those are two kind of fleshy colors applied over a not at all fleshy thing. But I have some human guys around here somewhere that I prepped for this that I don't know where they got to. But when I get back, I'm sure that I will end up playing with these some more. And we can try out some different skin colors. And if you haven't watched it previously, again, this is one of those, I don't know which episode it is, but Reaper recently came out with, and this is in so my latest blog article, if you go up to that page there, is if you're traveling to something like Reapercon or a friend's house and you want to paint, what 15 to 25 colors can you bring so that you're not carrying like everything, all your paints. And these are 3 of the colors that I recommended. These newer colors from Reaper, Oxide Yellow, and there are other alternatives. If you look at the blog article, I have pictures of all of the paint colors so that you can try to match it to something you already own. I'm not suggesting everybody go out and buy new colors all the time. Well, I am. I mean, come on, it's me. I love paint. But these I really love. These are 3 new Reaper colors I love because doing simple things like I was just doing, you can make a lot of skin tones and brown colors with just these. And so many things that we paint are skin tone and brown colors. So that makes it they're very handy for a compact set like that. So that is the chestnut applied with, it has just a little bit of matte medium in it applied over zenithal prime. And then this was me adding yellowy white to that slightly diluted chestnut, and then adding chestnut and yellow, and then a little actual white to make 2 different skin tones. And then this guy had a little bit of highlighting, but honestly that second skin tone color would work better for the highlighting than what I had been doing, I think. It got too white. Which you don't have to highlight this stuff. The point of it is that you can, if you have an underlying white surface, it'll tint that and then gather more in the recesses. But like anything else in painting, if you are willing to take a few minutes to add a little extra shading or add a little extra highlighting, you get bang for your buck. I don't know what I did with the purple. Is that the purple? So I thinned down some of the black. I could try to shade this even more if I wanted. And I just use water this time. They do thin with water. For those who weren't here earlier, I will show you the difference there. So there's just a little more shading. That was not a painful process. Let me move wet paint out of the way. So I showed the colors here, but then I was talking about what you thin them with. So this is the color straight out of the bottle, what you dilute them with. This is if you dilute it with water. As you add more and more water, you start to lose the property where it gathers more opaquely, more heavily in the recesses. Where if you add matte medium, in this case brush on sealer is Reaper's equivalent of matte medium. And I have suggested to Ron that maybe we should just have a bottle that says matte medium because it is confusing. This way it's like the secret code that you have to know. Like Trash didn't know it, I think, the other day. And I'm like, how has this not come up before? But if you mix it with medium instead, it gets more and more transparent. So that's one way of changing the color, essentially, making it a lighter version of the color. But it still gathers in the recesses. And then this is a product called Reaper's Wash Medium, which it kind of splits the difference. It's like partly medium, partly water. So there's less tinting on the upper areas of the surface than when diluted with the matte medium, but it still does gather in the crevices. So that's another way to change colors. You can change colors by diluting them and letting more of the white underneath show through, or you can change colors by mixing colors together or adding in white and other colors to them. So I think we've got about 5 minutes left. I guess let me know if there's any other questions you have about the Superwashes. They will first be available in the Barrowgate box that is, so it's coming out at Reapercon. If you're going to be at the show, you can buy it there. There should be a way for you to send it home via post if you are on a plane. I don't think it's so huge. Like, I think you're going to be able to fit the stuff in your suitcase. It's the palette. That's a 12-pack of paint. There's some miniatures. Like, it's not, I don't think it's massively bigger than the box I showed a minute ago than this. I thought they even said it was about the same size as this, but maybe I'm delusional. So this is the second box, is the swag box, which it also has some paint colors in it. It has these paint colors in it. One of them is a nice shiny metallic, and it has some miniatures as well. The miniatures and paints and stuff should go up for sale eventually on the website, because Reaper makes those things. It's the things like the notebooks and cups and stuff that they have produced out of house that they will eventually run out of, but they'll put extras of that up on the website too. But I don't think any of that stuff is going up until at least the Tuesday after Labor Day. Trash asks, how super do you think they are? Like super duper. Actually, I've really been having a ton of fun with them, and I did not expect to. It's not how I typically paint. Because I'm messy, I have trouble maintaining the white undercoat, and I guess I just, because this is actually not a new way of painting. I couldn't find it. I'm going to keep looking. But my husband had a box of miniatures from 1889. They're like a steampunk, it was a steampunk world, I think, with like blimps and stuff like that. And in the box, the instructions were basically, using washes over white undercoats for quick painting. And that's from the 80s or something, I think, maybe the early 90s, but I'm pretty sure the 80s. So this is not a new concept. People have been thinning down paint and doing this for years. What the new thing is paint companies trying to make mediums that do it more effectively, that do that thing where you're tinting the upper surfaces and then getting that higher concentration of color that works as shading in the crevices through gravity. And I've been having a lot more fun with them than I expected. I'm actually willing to paint some of our board game miniatures now, which people always come over and they're like, well, your board games must look amazing. It's like, okay, do you know anyone like a carpenter or that? Do you think that their house is well maintained? Like, do you think that they have a great wooden table and all because my stepfather was a carpenter, and I can tell you right now, no, because you're doing that for money. You're not doing that for fun and to make your own house look cool. And it is the same deal in the house of the professional miniature painter. My own miniatures are not very painted, because I'm painting other people's miniatures for money. But this way, it's quick enough and it's fun. It's like a relaxing way to slap some color on some stuff and still enjoy the color part without the stress part. I think I may paint some of my own miniatures, so I do think that's kind of super duper. Max Styles, I don't know, I buy a ton of stuff at Reapercon. Well, I'm just telling you how big that one box is. If you want to buy like a whole bunch of other things and then you have to ship stuff home, that's a different story. But I think if you just wanted the boxes, that you could, squeeze them into your luggage. I mean, I guess unless you're one of these people who like only has a carry-on, which I don't understand that lifestyle at all. So I cannot comment on that. Did anyone have any other questions about Reapercon or about these paints, or I don't know, anything else? Just double. So all the dudes are dry now. He had a bit of highlighting and shading, which does, add some richness to the armor. This is that same color, but applied over the zenithal prime, so it's going to look brighter in the areas that have more white and a little darker and grayer. I mean, you can see there was a lot of that black undercoat showing through on the leg armor. That's much less bright than like right here, got full white. There's another example of over a zenithal prime compared to just plain white. And then he's becoming interestingly colored, because he's just, if I want to test what a color looks like, I've been putting it on this guy because he is straight white. So now he's got armor made of skin and a purple boot, like you do. And then I was doing the wet blending on this one. What is my funnest activity at Reapercon? I mean, really, it's getting to hang out with my friends. Like, I love Reapercon for the con stuff, but what kept me coming back to cons after the first few was getting to hang out with people that I don't get to see any other way because they live, part trash says sleeping. But I mean, I like a lot of stuff. I like the opportunity to get to see all the stuff in the contest. It's kind of, I mean, being a judge is a ton of work. Like, it's hours and hours of work and my feet die, but it's really nice to get to see all those cool miniatures, and I can turn them around and look at the back when I'm judging, so that's like a little bonus feature for being a judge. What else do I enjoy? I mean, I never really have time to do stuff like the Sophie Says and the other, I'm trying to remember what the name of that section is, where somebody help me, all the nouns are leaving. But there's like Sophie Says, speed paints, other kinds of, I think there was a base and take, paint and take. Ludo does all that stuff. Hobby hijinks. I never get to do that kind of stuff because I'm always doing like volunteer work type things around the con, but I think those look super fun. I like the awards show, watching everyone look so happy. I like the chance to get to talk to people who, give me feedback, and I get to give them feedback. And it's nice to, I love hanging out with you guys here, but it is really nice sometimes to put names to faces. Now, I'm just going to be straight up with you guys. Because everybody has an online name, at least one, if not multiple, a real name, and then a face. And my ability to put all of those things together, even for people that I have met multiple years, I apologize in advance, is crap. So please do not be offended if I don't immediately place you or connect your name to your face or whatever, even if it seems like I should, because the part of my brain that is supposed to do that apparently does not. Well, there's no Texas-shaped pancakes at the fancy hotel, is there? They do give us a lot more breakfasty things, though. They have oatmeal, which I like a lot. What else do I enjoy? I mean, it's always fun to run around the vendor area and see, because I mean, I'm pretty familiar with what Reaper does, but there's all kinds of other, there's like plinths and other miniature companies and then other game companies. I like to hang out with my husband and get to play a board game now and then. Zachariah is mentioning my husband Kevin. So there's a board game library at Reapercon. So if you are bringing a friend who's not super into miniatures, you can park them with my husband and he'll entertain them with board games. And you can also just borrow a board game from the board game library and go take it to a table and play it with your friends. You don't have to play it with my husband. Not that he isn't extremely happy to play a lot of board games with people, because he is, but you don't have to. I should teach a class in how to judge painted miniatures. It would improve your painting. There are episodes of this show where I have gone through kind of, if this was a miniature in a contest, this is the feedback I would give it, and then I kind of do a paint over and demonstrate what it would look like to fix it. And if you go there, there's a whole page of like contest feedback or common contest issues or something. So I have articles where I've done that weren't part of the show. There are some that are part of the show. They're before and after pictures. You can get a lot of information on the most common feedback that I give. Well, not just me, because I hang out with the other judges. I know what they say too. There. And I actually have kind of done a class, so it's not how to judge painted miniatures, but I used to have a class called Level Up. And it was basically trying to give you skills to learn how to assess your miniatures more. It was just an hour and 45 minutes of me fire hosing information at you. It was like 10 or 20 classes in one. Like, it's almost grown too much. Okay, Trash actually said my favorite thing about Reapercon, which is Beth Marie ice cream. I love to, every time we're in Texas, every now and then we aren't able to go or something happens or they don't have the cinnamon ice cream, which is just criminal. But Beth Marie ice cream is just amazing. Oh, Max Styles, you took the Level Up, because it's changed. I mean, it's like the class that it started as, that's what's in the handout, and then I teach like a whole other class in the content. But really the blog is Level Up. The blog is me having enough time to actually, instead of talking about a thing in 3 sentences, I can take that 3-sentence thing and say, okay, here's the full story of that. So that's why one of the reasons I started the blog is like there's just too much, even if I fire hose you. And the blog gives me the time to talk about it and gives me the time to think about it and find more visual examples and figure it out more myself. So I don't know whether I will be doing that one as a class again, but I do a lot of that and a lot of what you're talking about, like how do we learn to critique our own figures, and when people talk about contrast, what the heck is it? The blog and stuff I do here on this show are that a lot. Which isn't to say that there should never be a class in like how to judge miniatures, just that I'm trying to provide that information just in a different way. Trash is explaining that Beth Marie is a small ice cream company. They make their own ice cream. They're in, I don't know if they're other than places than Denton, but they have 3 locations in Denton, and then they make custom Reapercon flavors, as Trash is mentioning in chat. And they're little pints, and there's like a store, I think it's where the Starbucks is, so you can go in and buy Starbucks drinks and stuff, but if you turn opposite the Starbucks counter, there's like a little freezer, and they will have the pints in there. And they usually make them thematic to the theme of the year, which this year is like, Dungeoneering and stuff. So I don't know what kind of, we had like swampy, muddy things last year for the pirating, I think. But this year, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm curious to see. They usually do 2 or 3 flavors. And I think they bring, Trash, don't they sometimes bring some of their like just standard flavors as well? They're not all custom themed flavors. But the bar usually does like custom themed drinks. So the whole convention center kind of gets in the spirit, and that's really fun. We didn't have the auction last year. That's coming back, and the artists really get to participate in the auction because we don't usually have enough Reaper bucks. Every few years we'll like pool together and like one artist gets something. But it's fun to watch other people participate in the auction, so I do enjoy that. What else? I didn't get to see Derek doing karaoke last year. I suspect he's doing that again this year, but I didn't get to see that. Or is Derek's coming, right? Yeah, I don't know. Now my brain is going. No Time for Real would give me my Reaper bucks. I'm okay. No, the artists are fine. It's just fun, like, because we don't get that much opportunity to take classes or do other activities. We don't usually participate in the auction, but it is still fun to watch, even if you're not going to participate in it. And for people who, I like that they do that's right, Derek is the Anne on Saturday. It's Anne we're missing. We're getting Derek, but we're not getting Anne because of Puppy. So some of us aren't really the gambling type, and auctions aren't our deal, and so now they have the store, which is nice. So if you just want to use your Reaper bucks in the swag store or whatever they called it, last year it was like thematic, but I think this year it's just swag store. Trash is mentioning that Izzy isn't coming, and that is true. If you were hoping to get to hang out with the incredible Talon, also known as Izzy Collier, alas, you will not be able to do that. Izzy is not coming. And she will be missed, and Anne will be missed. It's very weird not to have Anne there. I mean, gosh, if you've been doing Reapercons for a while like I have, Anne's been doing that award ceremony since there was an awards ceremony. To be fair, Kiki is a stinking cute puppy. I watched the show, the most recent one that Quindy had uploaded, I think, and Anne said, it said puppy in the title, but then Anne said that the puppy cam wasn't working. So I'll have to go look for the newer show and get to see the puppy, because I didn't get to see the puppy. No Time for Bull is wondering if Mocha is coming, and I honestly do not know. What I would suggest for, if you're wondering about anyone coming who's an instructor, go look at the class things, and if you see someone's name there, then I guess they're coming, because I was never really provided with a comprehensive list of who is coming and who is not. Oh, I thought I scanned through. Looking through for Puppy, but I didn't see a puppy. Is it possible to have Reapercon without Anne? I guess we're going to find out, but it's certainly going to be weird to have a Reapercon without Anne. That is very weird, I will admit. But we will do our best. There cannot be a better excuse than having a sweet little puppy to take care of. So I'll forgive her this once, I guess. Today's show had a Kiki appearance near the start. Oh, okay. After we finish up, I will have to go watch that. Trash Rama has minis to hand off to Frank at the show. Are you saying that in an ominous, we're all going to die during Reaper Errant kind of way, Trash? How much concern should I have? Max Styles Painting, Derek is going to do the awards, and he's actually a professional actor, so I think that we'll make it through. But I'm not saying not to name your entries interesting, difficult to pronounce things. I'm not saying not to do that. I might even be saying to do that. I think you should do that. Name your entries interesting and or difficult to pronounce things. Maybe I haven't even seen one of the models. Oh, I think we're going to die. Well, okay. I think, we're after time, and I got to go back and stuff. So I will see those of you coming to Reapercon at Reapercon. And if you're not, I believe there's going to be plenty of streaming content. I was just talking about Reaper Errant. We're doing that Friday. I think it's 4 to 8. But there will be tons of other streaming content to enjoy. So it will be almost like you're there. And in fact, you're going to get to see things that we won't see, because if you're there, you don't have time to watch all the cool streaming content. So that's kind of, everybody misses out. The new Reapercon is everybody misses something. So it's totally fair. But either way that I see you, I hope you have a good weekend regardless of what you do. And I don't think there will be a show next week, because they'll be bringing all the camera equipment back and stuff. So I will not see you for 2 weeks. I'll see you then, and I'll do more Superwash stuff if people want to show you maybe some other stuff that we got at the con. So I'm going to let Quindy find us a raid. I'm sure there's someone doing something fun. I'll see you Wednesday night, Dogfather 1. Zachariah I am. Bye, guys. Oh, Mike Disney. Say hi to Mike for me.